Now we get into trade destinations for Donovan Mitchell. And there are all the obvious candidates. I think the two that will stand out the most, and so let's hit them. Let's begin with the Miami Heat, who are just going to be involved in every star chase until the end of time. They do need another half-court creator. Donovan Mitchell, they have the defenders in Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo to make up for him. Even Kyle Lowry, if we're assuming they keep him as part of the deal. And it's a lot easier to get to Donovan Mitchell's salary, which is $30.3 million, about 30.4 this upcoming season, than it is for Kevin Durant's salary, which checks in at 44.1. So you could feasibly, it's Hero, it's Robinson, and then all the salary filler that you can cobble together. Like, you will be able to get there theoretically, I think, without using Kyle Lowry if you don't want to. Still, the framework is it's Tyler Hero salary filler, because even if Lowry's involved in this trade, he's probably going to a third team. And it's like, why would Utah have any interest in him? Just given the direction that they're going. But the framework is Tyler Hero, Nikola Jovic, and you could talk about Strus, Gabe Vincent, but I'm talking meat and potatoes of this deal. Tyler Hero, Nikola Jovic, and then you're just giving away your draft for however many years that you can. And if they have the 2025 pick owed to OKC under conditions, maybe you can negotiate that so that it's unprotected and that you know it will convey, in which case you can do your 2023 pick, a 2024 swap, your 2026 swap, a 2027 pick, a 2028 swap, and then a 2029 pick. And so it's control over 6 first-round picks eventually, unless I just did my order there wrong, which no, I didn't. You're talking first in 23, 27, 29, swaps in 24, 26, and 28. I think that's a heck of a haul. If you're Utah, I do believe you have to consider that Tyler Hero is about to be paid. The way that restricted free agency works, while I may not be the biggest fan of it overall, it does ensure that you could keep Tyler Hero beyond just next season, but you have to be sure that you want him. That's where I think maybe the Heat's best offer runs out of steam. So there is that to consider. Also, for people who are concerned about Bam Adebayo and Donovan Mitchell being on the same team, you can only trade for one player on a designated rookie, like who signed a designated rookie deal. But you can have up to 2 if you signed one of them. You signed one of them before their rookie scale. You had them on their rookie scale contract and then signed them to that. So you didn't even have to draft them. But as long as they were on your team before their rookie scale was up, you can have up to 2 of those. You can only have 1 of the traded players. So yes, I believe Bam Adebayo and Donovan Mitchell can play together if that was a concern for everyone. I don't know if the offer we're lining up, like just came up with, is going to be the best that Utah sees. I also don't really know what to expect from the Donovan Mitchell trade market. You look at the Gobert price tag, and I've been a very staunch believer in Kevin Durant is not going to fetch as much as people think that he is, just given his age and the fact he's only given 2 teams that he wants to go to. Donovan Mitchell's different. He doesn't turn 26 until September. So we're talking age 26 Donovan Mitchell versus age 34 Kevin Durant. It's not about the players. It's just knowing that he's so much younger. If he wants to be on your team, you're talking about getting the next 6 to 9 years of Donovan Mitchell, which in his prime, like, that is a star that can help you win. So that's why I do think that there could be a comparable get here for Utah, unless Donovan Mitchell, unlike what Rudy Gobert did, which contributed to that asking price going through the roof, if he says, well, I'm only going to talk to New York or Miami, and like those are the only teams that I'm going to promise that I want to be there long term. They have 3 years to figure it out, so you can trade for him anyway, and maybe you're more willing to make that dice roll because he is so young. But that is a way that he could drive down his price tag. Just given the way that players are moving now, or that you're acquiring stars, it's the draft itself or through trades. It wouldn't surprise me if we're talking about a haul that seems more illustrious than what Utah got for Rudy Gobert. The other obvious team here is the Knicks. Tony Jones of The Athletic, friend of the podcast, reported that everyone, league sources, expect the Knicks to be involved. I would concur. Donovan Mitchell was kind of circled as one of their primary targets long-term once Leon Rose came aboard. It was him, Karl Anthony Towns, and Devin Booker at the time. That did not work out so well for them with Devin Booker and Karl Anthony Towns. The Knicks do have a crap ton of draft picks, and the way they work out, they could get creative early on to where they're sending out their own, because if you're a team, and because they own like picks from Dallas and Detroit and Washington, they're protected. You're going to prefer Knicks picks anyway. You can get a little creative because you're New York, and you can trade your 2023 pick, your 2024 pick, and your 2025 pick. You can trade all your own first in that regard. If I'm Utah, those are not the picks that I'm as interested in. You're going to see how far the Knicks will go out anyway, but you're probably looking at, just post-dating Donovan Mitchell's current deal, or just like at least 2 to 3 years out. And Mitchell is slated right now for free agency in 2025, which I think he has a player option. That's just in time for the projected salary cap spike. So I think for starters, that's like the earliest draft pick that you would care about. So it's 3 drafts away. You don't 2023, 2024. If the Knicks have Donovan Mitchell, you expect them to not be, if they're a lottery team, they're not going to be one of the worst ones. And so that's where the Knicks they can still get a little creative, but they can't trade just all their first picks because they have these other teams' picks. They would have to do swaps still. That's just my point. That's me not being able to verbalize what I'm thinking, I suppose. So if you're the Knicks, though, you could include, in terms of physical picks, you could include up to, I think, 8 physical first-round picks, and that's not even counting swaps. You do have a host of intriguing younger players, R.J. Barrett being the top one, Obi Toppin, Cam Reddish, Manuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes, Miles McBride. So you do have a lot of different offers that you could build. Where the Knicks are going to struggle here is their primary salary matching is either, one, can't be traded right now, looking at Jalen Brunson, who just signed, Isaiah Hartenstein, he doesn't even make that much, but like those 2 guys who can't be traded, or they're sort of considered net negative money, where Julius Randle, about to begin a 4-year, I think it's the $112 million extension. If he plays kind of like he did at the close of the season, or just anything like he did during 2021, that deal looks like a steal against the rising cap. But for a team like Utah, that doesn't really jive with the timeline. Evan Fournier, 2 more guaranteed years at about $36.9 million. That's not going to be something that Utah values. And so now all of a sudden you have to compensate them for taking on those deals. Certainly Fournier, maybe you can rope 3rd and 4th teams in that are happy to send out expiring money for Julius Randle. But like, you're not going to get, I don't think you get any real asset value out of Julius Randle, even if you try to reroute him. And so then it becomes very tough to salary match. You're looking primarily at, okay, Derrick Rose on expiring deal. He could become a member of the Jazz again. He has a team option in 23-24 for anyone who's wondering. That's $14.5 million. Then there's RJ Barrett, who's making $10.9 next year. You can still get to Donovan Mitchell's money without including RJ Barrett. It's Obi Toppin has to be in it at $5.4 million. And then you have Cam Reddish at about $6 million. That almost gets you there. You're talking about, let's say $12 million there on top of Rose's 14. That's $26 million. That's probably even enough to do some quick math here. And if it's not, you're going to fall just short. And that's where it is enough to get you there. Now, that's not all you're going to be sending out anyway. I would imagine that the Jazz, if they're not going to get Barrett, you're definitely getting 2 of Quickley, Grimes, and Toppin. And so you might be using Toppin and Reddish and Rose as your primary salary matching tools, but then one of Quickley or Grimes will be in there. If I am the Knicks, I'm including as many picks and non-RJ Barrett prospects as it takes just to keep RJ Barrett. I think he becomes really important if you want to survive defensively while playing Brunson and Donovan Mitchell a ton of minutes at the same time. I want to make it clear, too, that Donovan Mitchell was really good at basketball. I would just prefer to see him as on a team where that he's going to elevate them to contention or make them a title favorite. He doesn't do that for the Knicks. And that's just been sort of my qualm with the Jalen Brunson, is it feels like, I don't want to say this would necessarily be the Melo trade all over again for the Knicks, but it feels like they will have jumped through all these hoops, given up all this flexibility, or gone all in, because fuck flexibility. That's fine. Whatever. I'm cool with that. But they will have gone all in on a core that tops out as what? Like the 4 seed in the East and maybe never makes a conference finals. I don't know what happens 4 or 5 years down the line. Donovan Mitchell's still so young. But if you're giving up that much draft equity, you're in trouble. So, like, you're not going to be able to make all these other moves moving forward. Maybe you believe that free agents will eventually start moving around again and they'll want to go to New York, but that's been a belief for years, and it really just hasn't panned out. To Donovan Mitchell's credit, though, I think there was everything on Twitter is basically condescending at this point, where people were like, oh, I feel like no one knows how good Donovan Mitchell is anymore because he had a rough postseason. I really just don't think that's it. I think certain teams are in a situation where unless you're skewing so young where you're going to have assets to spare and you want Donovan Mitchell there, or you're just at the top of the mountain, the teams that are closer in the middle, without him actually elevating you to championship contention, it's fine if they don't want him or if the fan base doesn't want him. I will say this is someone who can be the driving force of an offense, including in the postseason. Like this past year, things got rough, but we've seen him have big postseason moments in the past. Even let's look at this regular season. Like he's never been the most efficient offensive player, but he has improved his off the dribble game shooting a great deal while he's been in the league. And the shot selection can be a little bit iffy, but a lot of it is kind of born from necessity. When you looked at Utah's roster, you were going to rely on Mike Conley or Jordan Clarkson to create off the bounce if it wasn't him. And the volume, like the clip that he shot relative to the volume that he cannibalized, whatever you want to call it, put him in some pretty good company. He shot 35.6% during the regular season on off the dribble threes. Here's every player who shot as well on off the dribble threes while taking at least 5 a game. Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Steph Curry. That is it. Jason Tatum was below 34%. James Harden was below 34%. Those are all better players than Mitchell, but like he is a level of shot maker that is incredibly valuable. And so I'm not going to fault teams if they do go full bore after him. And I think he's someone who has the potential to actually not suck on defense. And maybe just being in a different situation revitalizes him, where we saw Devin Booker improve a bunch on the ball once his team got better around and was playing for something. Maybe Mitchell just wants a change of scenery. Still, I do think Donovan Mitchell is a spectacular player. Do I believe if you're a team like the Knicks in the middle, firmly in the middle of the pack, that you should give up the kitchen sink and more to get him? No. I think if I was to set sort of a limit, I would rather see him on teams that are further away just because they technically have more flexibility when you look at the range of outcomes with their younger players. When you go to the Knicks, it's sort of like, that's why you need RJ Barrett, because he is that potential star mystery box. Also, if I'm Utah, RJ Barrett's really good, but he's about to get paid. And do you want to reinvest? He's extension eligible now, restricted free agent in 23. Do you want to start off your rebuild by funneling a bunch of money, what will probably be a 9-figure, a near max, if not a max deal into him? Maybe you don't care, but that would be a weird or bizarre decision. I would understand if you prioritize draft equity more, especially if it's just controlling the Knicks draft picks moving forward. Having just a chunk, the majority of both the Knicks and Timberwolves' draft futures, historically, that would prove to be an incredibly smart decision. So I do think the Knicks package, even without RJ Barrett, can be super attractive. They can load it up with first-round picks. Without RJ Barrett in it, it does sort of lack the luster of the immediate oomph, where I think even if Miami is including Tyler Hero, like having that element of it, that's what RJ Barrett brings to the table for them. Another team that I've seen mentioned a bunch, I wouldn't say, I agree with it, Toronto, just because they could use another half-court shot creator. They have the rangy defenders to make up for any shortcomings on Mitchell's behalf. Fred VanVleet is so good on defense that you can play the Donovan Mitchell, Fred VanVleet backcourt size that you're giving up, be damned. I think what becomes an issue here is you're not giving up Siakam or Fred VanVleet in those trades. Neither of those, maybe Siakam would intrigue Utah, but like if you're rebuilding, which is what you're doing if you trade Donovan Mitchell, those aren't guys you're going after. You're not giving up Scotty Barnes for Donovan Mitchell. It's just, one, you do still have to worry about him leaving in a shorter span of time than you would with KD. It's just that he is younger. Unless he says he loves Toronto, like that's where he wants to be forever. Even then, I don't know if Donovan Mitchell has top 10 player potential. And I know some people watch Scotty Barnes and don't think he's that. I've watched him, and that's what I feel he is. And so if I value him like that, I'm not giving him up for Donovan Mitchell. Then where it gets iffy, you're saying, okay, well, so you have to give up Anunoby and Trent. And like that kind of loses some of the appeal because someone like Anunoby would be tasked with covering up a lot for Donovan Mitchell defensively. You don't have to give up, in theory, Anunoby and Trent. It would definitely cost you Anunoby because I think Utah needs that like immediate sheen. But you can build a deal with Anunoby's salary or Gary Trent Jr.'s and then just load it up. You have salary filler. Kem Birch can help get you there. Precious Achiuwa, Malachi Flynn. That might just get you to that point. Even just look, Kem Birch at 6.7. Let's use OG Anunoby here at 17.4. You're at $24 million already. Yeah, you can get to Donovan Mitchell with 3 or 4 players and only give up one of Anunoby or GTJ and then load it up with picks. That's not an option I would dismiss if I were the Raptors and Donovan Mitchell's open to staying. Again, I know his shot selection is iffy, but you put him just on sort of this team where there's a lot more other shot creators around him than he has in Utah, and that's not to dismiss Mike Conley or Jordan Clarkson, but Van Fleet and Siakam, and then let's say they still have GTJ and Scotty Barnes. Like, that's just a different level of talent and depth when you combine it. So I like the Raptors as a Mitchell destination, but I'm not giving up Scotty Barnes. I'm not giving up both Anunoby and Trent to do it. I think that detracts from it a ton. Ideally, maybe because you don't think Donovan Mitchell is worth like the full draft boat on his own, if the Jazz were just like, yeah, we'll take control of your draft and just give us GTJ and then the rest of the salary filler. I don't know how confident I'd feel about that if I'm Utah, just because Toronto is such a well-run organization. Still, that is something you could look at. Some other teams that I think deserve to be mentioned here. Cleveland, I would love to see Mitchell playing with Garland and Mobley. And so what can you build where you're willing to uncork or untether everyone except those guys plus any picks that Utah would want? I don't know, like, if you're giving up Akbaji and Okoro in there as well, is Utah interested in the Sexton sign and trade? I don't know that they would want Jarrett Allen. I mean, him at $20 million a year per seems about market value, and he's really good. And so just to have that, I think you would insist on him being in there. It helps with salary matching, one. And that's a deal you want, I would say, on your books moving forward. He has 4 years and $80 million left with the cap rising. You could flip that later if you wanted, or he's still really young. I think he just played out his age 23 season, if I'm not mistaken. So he's going into his age 24 season. I don't know if that offer is aggressive enough. You would really have to love Jarrett Allen, but maybe you're also fine with, well, we want control of Cleveland's draft. And that's a little bit complicated by the fact that they currently owe, they don't. They owe a first-round pick to Indiana, but it's lottery protected next year, and then, like, that's it. Like, there's no encumbrances there. And if you're Utah, I am more interested in the distant Cleveland picks. Maybe there's a little bit riskier there because you're like, well, that means Mobley and Garland and Mitchell are further into their prime, so they're technically better. I still think distant first-round picks are the way to go. Would love Donovan Mitchell on the Cavs. I just don't think they have the equity to get him. Ditto for Dallas, who definitely doesn't have the equity to get him. It's just, you could throw every first-round pick possible on the table, and we're looking at a 24 swap, a 25 pick, 26 swap, 27 pick, 28 swap, and a 2029 pick. And then, like, take your pick of salary filler here. I mean, they have THJ, Spencer Dinwiddie, Dallas Bertans, Christian Wood, Dwight Powell, Reggie Bullock, Dorian Finney-Smith, Maxi Kleba. Dorian Finney-Smith, if you could get him. At that point, though, I think they need more tangible assets, more actual player assets than just their picks. I think there needs to be a balance struck here where there's even at least one centerpiece, tangible centerpiece, one player centerpiece, or a collection of players that can at least amount to that, even if the picks are sort of the featured event of any proposal. I don't think Dallas could get there. Would love him in Dallas, though, next to Luka. Would also have loved Jalen Brunson in Dallas next to Luka, in case anybody cares. I thought about Detroit would be super interesting, just putting him next to Cade Cunningham. And how much would you actually need to give up in addition to Jaden Ivey if you're making this deal? They're just not. I can't picture them going all in like that. I do think Mitchell Cunningham would be a fantastic duo. And if you are allowed to keep Jalen Duren as part of that deal, or at least, and Sadiq Bey, like if you're able to get away with that, Jaden Ivey and then the pick special, maybe the Jazz have interest in Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah Livers has been blown up in Summer League. I can't picture Detroit wanting to get involved there. I thought about Indiana for a minute, but just like, you're not going to give up Benedict Mathurin now. And to keep you, Jazz would insist upon Halliburton, and you're not giving him up. But just between having Benedict Mathurin and Chris Duarte, and then giving up control of your draft maybe, and do you want Miles Turner with third team? Are there more assets going there? I would love to see it. I just don't see the Pacers getting involved. And I'm just going through teams where I could see a fit that have been talked about. Both LA teams are out of the question here. Sorry, Lakers fans. It's just Russell Westbrook and 2027 and 2029 first plus 2 swaps aren't getting you Donovan Mitchell. I saw some people mention the Grizzlies. I can't get there. Even if they can get there with a package, you're not going to give up John Morant, of course. I just feel like the team loses a lot of its appeal if you're giving up either both Desmond Bane and Zaire Williams, then all his picks. Even if then are you going to give him Jaren Jackson Jr.? Is that someone the Jazz even want, given his current injury and that he's already been paid? I do think a deal, it could be made if you're willing to put Zaire Williams and Desmond Bane on the table. I just question, okay, well, what's the resulting team there? There's also just so much overlap between Ja and Donovan Mitchell, two guys who operate best with the ball in their hands. It'd be way easier to fit, again, Cade Cunningham next to Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson next to Donovan Mitchell, a Kyle Lowry next to Donovan Mitchell, if you keep that. And there's, you could run into some limitations when you're looking at Bam and Jimmy Butler and Donovan Mitchell, but, like, it's just a little bit different. None of those, like, Ja Morant is very much like the heart and soul of the Grizzlies offense, and Butler, Lowry, even Bam, they have more experience playing off the ball, even during their times in Miami, but Lowry, of course, overall. I don't love the fit. I think it could work. That's probably not the move I'm making. It would be like if a Donovan Mitchell, if it was Brandon Ingram, I'd feel a lot differently. That's probably the best way to frame it. We've already talked about Miami. Milwaukee can't get involved. I don't know why Utah would want a distant first-round pick and then Drew Holiday or Chris Middleton, who is injured at the moment. We'll actually get to him. Minnesota already has its Jazz on the roster. The Pelicans, I saw some people actually mention them. I'm not a fan of it. I just think, like, you have Brandon Ingram, you have CJ McCollum, you have Zion Williamson. Like, you have enough shot creation from a standstill on the run. You're fine. If Jonas Valanciunas as well, Devontae Graham. I don't think you go all in for this. It's different if it's Kevin Durant or if this type of player is sort of a wing or someone who allows Zion to shift to the 5, but he provides enough help rim protection where Zion doesn't have to. Donovan Mitchell's not that, and so this doesn't feel like the all-in type of player for them. The Knicks we already went over. We're about to get to some of my favorite teams, which are off the beaten path, and I think I like Toronto more than most, but I would love to see OKC go in with you. We will... Chet Holmgren, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are bolted down. What do you want? How many picks? We've got Clippers picks. We've got Houston picks. We have one of the Jazz's picks. I think they have Utah's 2024 first. They have a Philly pick. They have Josh Giddey. They have Alexei Pokusevski. They have Darius Baisley. They have both Jalen Williamses. Can't move Lou Dort at the moment. If they wanted to, look, Lou Dort, Donovan Mitchell, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, insert fifth player to be named later. Might need a little bit more shooting there, but my God. They won't do it, is my point. But that's a team. I look at the Thunder, or the next team I'm about to mention, which shout out to, I want to say it was Demos Quoll or Darkwing Duck on our Discord. Maybe one of them mentioned it, that the Magic would be a great destination. The Thunder, though, I would love. It would just be so out of character, but that's the type of team where it's like, I feel better about them going after Donovan Mitchell because there's still so much room to grow for a bunch of their other players and their window in general. And also the Thunder specifically have so many fucking picks that they would, even if they gave Utah as much as you could imagine, they're going to have some left over to continue making moves. And they also haven't committed as many big long-term deals like the Knicks have. I feel better about a team like the Thunder going after Donovan Mitchell than I do the Knicks. You do have to factor in the politics of it all. Does Donovan Mitchell want to stay in OKC, which is in part why it'd be tough to imagine them making a trade like this. The Magic would be so interesting. I just don't know where you start your offer. There's picks, and you have Chicago's 2025 pick. You have 2023 pick and Denver's 2025 pick. And then you have all your own picks moving forward. The tangible assets here, would you include Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner? What you're not getting out of this deal without including one of them. I think I would include either of them. I love Jalen Suggs. I believe I'm probably higher on him than the consensus. I feel like he had some, an ankle injury last year, and then they saddled him with a ton of on-ball control. I think he's going to have a really good sophomore season, in part because Paolo Banchero is there. But can you build an offer where Paolo Banchero is no, and if we're giving you both Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs, like, you're not getting a ton of draft equity. But if it's one of those guys and a bunch of draft equity, maybe the Jazz have some interest in Jonathan Isaac. Just his contract is a lot more team-friendly now with a non-guarantee. And if he hits, you have a real asset on your hands. And they have sort of those, I'll call them like a lot of the Knicksian mid-end assets, where it's, if the Jazz are interested in Wendell Carter Jr. Wendell Carter Jr. is probably better than any non-RJ Barrett prospect on the Knicks. Although I think I'm falling irrationally in love with Quentin Grimes, if anyone cares about. You have Chuma Okeke. I don't think Cole Anthony would have a ton of value to the Jazz. Maybe they would value Markelle Fultz a little bit. They have Devin Kennedy as well. So, like, there are ways they could go. But if the framework is, there would be some overlap with Suggs and Mitchell. Ideally, I would bolt down Suggs or I shouldn't say ideally. If I'm the Magic, I'm starting with Banchero and Suggs are off limits. Take your pick of everyone else, and we'll try to figure out, and then we'll do the first round draft equity, real picks and swaps to make it work. If the Jazz insist on Suggs, and I'm not giving up both him and Wagner, I don't know that I could do it, unless, again, the draft equity really isn't that cost prohibitive. Maybe that changes it a little bit. Donovan Mitchell is that good, though, where I believe if you put him on a team like Orlando and he's there for the long haul, like you give this team the 2 or 3 years that they have with him, there's a legitimate force there. And I'm a huge believer in Paolo Banchero. Doesn't mean much coming from someone like me. He was my consensus top prospect, and he looked a part of it in Summer League. Again, that's a team that would be so out of character to do this. Philly would be fun with Harden and Mitchell. I just don't know how you get there. You can't even trade your 2029 first round pick technically, unless it's conditional upon 2027 conveying to Brooklyn, which is conditioned upon the 2025 pick going to OKC. So, like, you're talking about one future first round pick, and, like, yeesh. It's just like, and then Tyrese Maxey and then salary filler and Matisse Thybulle. I don't think that does it. Are the Jazz in love with Jaden Springer? There are swaps that you could include there. So, I mean, hooray for that. The package just doesn't, I think it falls well short. It would depend on how much the Jazz value Maxey. Do they think that he's going to be a better player than Donovan Mitchell? Because then that's where things would get interesting. But like Maxey, Harris, Thybulle, and there would have to be other salaries coming back from Utah just because Harris makes so much money there. And then one first round pick and swaps is really what you can give up at this point. That's not really doing it for me, to be honest. So that's where it would be you could do a 2024 swap, and that's the only swap you can even guarantee. So, that's you can do conditional swaps, I suppose, but that offer, it would be built entirely around Maxey, and I just don't think that's enough given the level of player Donovan Mitchell already is. I do think Tyrese Maxey, of all the assets we mentioned, or players, excuse me, I really apologize, with the exception of maybe Jalen Suggs, but I'm going to say no. But with the exception of Scotty Barnes, Maxey would be the single best asset that could realistically be involved. The difference is, the Raptors aren't giving up Scotty Barnes for Donovan Mitchell. If you laid out the framework of it was basically Maxey and then whatever else you can give up for Mitchell, I think the Sixers do it. So there's a chance that looking at like actual realistic negotiations, forget what I said about the Pelicans, how you feel about Mathurin, or if you thought they're not going to include Halliburton, just realistic teams that could be involved. Maxey's probably the single best player, young player or even player in general. I mean, like, what other big season name is a team giving up for Donovan Mitchell? There's a chance that he is that singular best player available in a Donovan Mitchell trade package. The Sixers just don't have a way to flesh the rest of it out. Phoenix, not happening. They have Devin Booker and Chris Paul, and they're going to be so involved in the KD sweepstakes. Simons and Lillard are already in Portland. Sacramento with Fox already there. Are you using Fox to try and get Mitchell and then giving up a bunch of firsts and Davion Mitchell to have Mitchell and Sabonis? That team doesn't fit. The Spurs are not on that timeline anymore after trading DeJounte Murray. I mentioned the Raptors. The team that I kind of like, Washington. You just re-signed Bradley Beal. Like, maybe it's time to take that swing. This would either need to be a bunch of separate transactions, or you could just wait until I think it's September 6th when Monte Morris and Will Barton can be aggregated in trades. But, like, if you're looking for salary ballast, Will Barton, expiring deal. You have Kyle Kuzma. That's not salary ballast. Like, let's actually go through the assets. Monte Morris, an asset on his current deal. Sorry, like, not someone you view as the centerpiece. Kyle Kuzma, expiring contract because he has a player option, but has real value. Denny Avdia, who I think could be one of the 5 best players, like prospects that would be available in a Donovan Mitchell trade. You also have Daniel Gafford, if the Jazz are looking to sort of plug some center needs. And then you owe your 2023 first to New York. It's lottery protected next year, top 12 and 24, top 10 and 25, top 9 and 26. So it's protected a great deal. But if you're the Jazz and they're going first allowable, or maybe Washington can negotiate it with the Knicks so that's unprotected in 23, I don't know if the Knicks would help Washington get Donovan Mitchell. Like, you can build, if you have Avdia and you're throwing Monte Morris in there eventually. Let's say Avdia, Gafford, Kuzma, so let's go Kuzma, Monte Morris, Avdia, Gafford, and then as many first-round picks as you could sort of stomach. Maybe your team loses some of its luster. I'd fight to keep Kuzma. I think would be most important. You're just not getting out of this deal with Avdia still in your possession. So let's just say Morris, Avdia, Gafford, and then whatever filler is necessary. That's why you have Will Barton there. And all the picks, is that just, and let's just say, for argument's sake, it's first allowable draft. You'll give up 2025, 27, 29, and then you can give up 3 swaps, 24, 26, and 28. That's if you can get the Knicks to just take 23, essentially. That's a really competitive offer, and Donovan Mitchell and Bradley Beal are going to be one of the worst defensive backcourts in the NBA, probably, but I think Mitchell can get better. We've seen Beal have better defensive seasons than the past 2 years. Having Kristaps Porzingis behind them, if you're able to keep Kuzma, like there's something there. I don't know what you top out as, but you've kind of consigned yourself to topping out as mediocre anyway, just by giving Bradley Beal a no trade clause, a trade bonus, the full 5-year max with a player option on the 5th year. So I think the Wizards would be a sneaky destination that I could see, or at least a team that would really go all in on a Mitchell trade. Where would I even, knowing that Kyle Kuzma was going to free agency, are they really going to get hung up in keeping Kyle Kuzma in these talks? But if you can make it so that the Knicks are just going to take 23, or the Jazz are okay with you saying first allowable terms, in which case they're banking on you making the playoffs next year, essentially. That trade, I think, just becomes a lot more interesting, because I think Denny Avdia could be really good. He's already one of the most underrated defenders in the NBA. I think there's a lot more playmaking he has to offer, some physicality on drives. Shooting probably needs to improve. And then they have some flyer throw-ins too that I don't think any of them amount. Johnny Davis, I can't believe I forgot about him. So that's a first-round pick right there. Are they interested in Isaiah Todd? I doubt they're going to be interested in Rui Hachimura's a whatever. Ditto for maybe. Anthony Gill can't even be traded right now, so it doesn't matter. But that's it. I think the Wizards could be a dark horse here. But those are the destinations that we gone through for Mitchell. Some of them are my favorite. Some of them are not. If I had to pick my favorites that I like, that I think should go after Mitchell, I like, and that could realistically at least get him. And I'm not even going to fuck being real here. It's just the plausibility of if they wanted to throw their hat in the ring. Miami, of course. And then I love OKC and Orlando, Washington, and Toronto. I think he'd be fine in New York. I think New York and Miami are probably the most realistic destinations here, if we're being honest. But my favorite ones would be, I want to say Dallas, but they just don't, and Cleveland. I just can't imagine them having the horses to get in the race. But I'll throw Cleveland in there, just because they at least have real assets other than their picks to offer. So let's go Cleveland, Miami, OKC, Orlando, and Washington. I think I like them in Washington a little bit better and I'll throw Toronto in there. Those are just my 6 teams, but I think you need to keep an eye on the Knicks certainly as well in there. Did I just name everybody but the Knicks? That's kind of fucked up. No, there's Dallas in there. Again, I don't think in Atlanta, Boston, Brooklyn, those teams aren't going to get involved. If Brooklyn wanted to get involved, Ben Simmons has to go somewhere else. But yeah, so the Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes, they have begun apparently, or they've been underway for quite a while. Keep your eyes peeled on that.